How are you guys out in internet land? Hopefully I'm coming through at a decent volume and I'm not going to get content ID'd for leaking music through my headphones. Oops, that would make noise. There we go. So we should be up live on all the platforms. We control the vertical and the horizontal. Set it to potato quality, put it in the corner. Life is good. Mexalon. I need you to go away. Oh man, so Plex split, holy shit, let's talk about that for just a second. Let me turn off the music so I can actually think hard enough. So all of our tools should be updated to use it and leverage it correctly. It was a giant pain in the ass to get done. Like, took 4 times more time than I was really hoping would take, but this is what happens when you do an asinine design thing and make it databaseless so that you don't have to worry about the 0 people who said, you're a jerk and you're paywalling it and you made a walled garden and I hate you. Didn't actually happen, and so I feel like an idiot. But it works, it's testing, it's deployed, everything worked out in the end, and we got it deployed just in the ta-da nick of time. Like, I was building it Monday night, trying to get the deploy finished. It was a real squeaker. So that should mean that everywhere that uses our tools will be reporting correctly, and should be good news for all the fans. I know that not a lot of people are using the feed yet. We've only given our API out to a few requesters, and I haven't seen pings from those API keys yet. Not that I have it really well set up to take those in. One of those things, it's one big software design problem is I swear you have to design everything 3 times. So we're getting there, and I had to put in a really shitty hack into R to get coverage because, well, I was way too late in making the actual thing, and ate up all of my work time. CKB 45 ships. Nicholas Satterley on YouTube is asking, why is armor so much more expensive than shields? And I think it just comes down to the drop rates on the product. So it's not ward consoles that are the so I know on armor the critical component tends to be armor plates. I'm not sure what the critical component is on shield ones, but I'm pretty sure it's nowhere as expensive as armor plates. And it just comes down to what is the choke point more than what is the demand. So if you go through the recipes, you'll see that like all the shield mods, all the shield rigs look pretty similar. They just take a slightly different mix of stuff. And same for each class of them. Like they all share a recipe with a couple of variations on the theme. And there'll be one critical item that really blows away the budget. So that is the short and dirty answer for that. Oops, I didn't tweet. Tweet. Tune in now. Coming to you live through the power of the internet. All right. And MCN, which I think is Elange, if I'm not mistaken, we did release a tool for, what's the word, that predicts the future. And if you go check out the blog, there's information on that. Tengu, rattlesnake. Did we talk about rattlesnakes crashing last week? Yeah, we did. Let's put that in there. That goes here, that goes here. Rattlesnake goes here. Apex FPS is asking, new listener to the show, I really want to get into market speculation, but honestly, all of the data you present is overwhelming. What's the best way to get into this? So the spoiler I have is specialization is your friend. I give a view of the entire market for like as many consumers as I possibly can, but that's not going to help you as a that's not going to help you as a generalist trying to get your teeth on it, because like the human brain can only really keep like 4 active things in memory, and it's, you know, once you start trying to track maybe more than 50 items, your brain starts to melt down and it makes it really hard to keep that all inside. So you need better and better tooling and better intuition as you add more items. So my advice to new traders is always find a market you're interested in and go dig really deep into that. So like I'm a big fan of the moon mineral markets. I'm a big fan of the Tech 2 product markets. Another good one for playing with, because there's enough volatility to start being interesting, is things like high meta items for better, you know, more regular returns and less risk. You do it in the pirate and faction levels. If you want to get really nuts and really do your research and make more money, you know, for more risk, you go higher up into the dead space and officer stuff. There's a lot of opportunities there. Also in pirate implants, I lump into that market. I don't like to tell newbies to go into mineral speculation because it takes a lot of money, and it's a really good. The margins get really thin. It's a good way to work with a lot of money, but if you're just starting, I don't assume you have a ton of money. But yeah, the other thing to look at is try to set yourself up for success. So things like you want to get the best return for your buck, for your time, and the best ways to do that are to do things that guarantee margin. So speculation is kind of a gamble, but things like cross market arbitrage is much more guaranteed. Things like going into going into like null sec and low sec markets for suppliers is another good spot to guarantee your margins, and that's a way to juice the pump essentially, and prime the pump and get the ball rolling, because the thing that will be your guide in the start is a lot of early successes. So and I wouldn't. You can trade at smaller trade hubs, but like use JITA to your advantage. Like you shouldn't be station trading as your first foray in JITA 4.4, but like you could use buy orders out of JITA, you could use sell orders out of JITA, and you could then go move them to your Norvukikens, your Torinoses, your Dodixis, out to Benylin, I think is a big one. Those keep you all in high sec. You can go to low sec, like Nanomalia is another decent place. Benylin isn't the right one I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of a different one. There's one right on the south side of Galente faction warfare that everybody dies in. I can never remember the damn name of it. Anyway, and there'll be a lot of those border systems that you can leverage to get to sort of juice your margin, and therefore the majority of what you're bringing in is about your competitive advantage more than the actual speculation. So speculation is the frosting on the cake that is arbitrage, basically. And like I said, it's about picking a specialty and focusing. You can expand once you understand how it plays, and you can then start to build your own tools or learn how to use other people's tools. Everness and Eve Mogul are good tools. ISK per hour is still the gold standard for producers. Yeah, you don't have to go in cold, but like set yourself up for success. I think you just need to understand how buy and sell orders get executed. And that should be mechanically covered on the Eve Uni wiki, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, come on. Stupid thing. Oh, this isn't even the right graph set. Moongoo. Platinum is interesting. Is platinum interesting enough? I don't think it's interesting enough. Well, and when you're starting, so the other starting tip is that you're going to start with high percentage margin. You want stuff that will make you a lot of money for not a lot of money. So, you know, you're looking for 20% plus for your thing. And the stuff that gets that is stuff like buy orders at mission hubs, or buying out faction warfare guys when they go cash out their LP. Are great ways to really amp that margin. And then you deal with the shipping, and you basically provide the service of grinding your time for money. And that'll be a great way to get that nest egg started. And then as you get the nest egg running, as you get more cash in the system, you're going to want to transition from high percentage margin to a higher net margin, where you care more about the total cash inflow rather than the percentage profit per transaction. And that takes a lot more art, finding out what your effort per ISK ends up being. But like the goal when you're starting is to look for the really big fruit and pick those and do the legwork to cash in on those transactions. And then as your nest egg grows enough, you transition into something a little less try hard. And then you spend 10 years doing it, and then you become a wannabe data scientist, and you start a market show for a fake economy. And wait a minute. Then you turn out exactly like me. Mechanical parts. That's interesting. Oh, fuck you. Do, 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 do. We're not going to start the show on time. I'm sorry, guys. Oops. God damn. It's been such a busy week. I've been cleaning up code for other people who aren't me, and I'm getting all salty about it. If you want to learn, if you already know how to code and you want a way to like leapfrog from being a hacker into being someone that everyone doesn't hate, number one book on my list is Code Complete, Volume 2, CC2E. It's a big one, but it's totally fucking worth it. I just ended up buying my third copy of the thing to give away to a friend, so that is my Bible, and I'm about to go beat some people over the head with it. Do I see... What do our eagle eyes see? The Garmer. Jesus, there's a lot of interesting stuff this week. Wait, what's that? Worms. There's that. The worm and the Garmer. Come on, where's the Garmer? Garmer. I mean, other people's minerals, if they want to sell them for free, absolutely take them. But yeah, I'll save it for the end of the show. I do have an accounting rant. Yeah, you should be sure that you're making money and not wasting your time. Man, I have so many bad predictions this week. Will I continue to play Eve after you stop? I mean, nobody quits Eve. Like, I've been playing for 12 years. It's hard to think of life without Eve. But I haven't been able to really commit to really playing Eve for quite a while. I'm sure I'll come around some other time, but my number one thing that keeps me out of Eve these days is you can't play it. You have to devote at least an hour to play, and I just don't have a contiguous block to do that. And this is more a me problem. This is where I am in my life. Professionally and everything, so this is less of an Eve problem than a me problem. We'll see if things turn around. I mean, never say never. I do leave the door open for. Now that is interesting. I do leave the door open for special reporting after. If there's like a particularly big war or a particularly big release. I mean, the tools are still the tools. Like this show is run because there's a lot of software that makes it possible. And but like I said, there are other projects I want to go work on and do stuff with. I do expect to be back on the air with more code stuff. And if you're interested in learning code, if you've been intimidated in the past, or you just really love the turbo nerdiness of the stuff, Garmer and the Bargist. then you should stay tuned because we'll be coming back probably later in the summer with some new stuff in that vein. I'm trying to work on it. I've been so busy. It's been really hard to commit. Let's make sure I'm not missing any big holes. We've got enough slides. Okay. And we're only 5 minutes late. Well, we'll be 10 minutes late once we start. So that button there, that button there, that button there. We've got that. So take a quick drink. So good evening, guys. This is the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host, Lockefox, and we're about to get this show rolling. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. But as all of the veteran people will tell you, I do have to give my apologies. We are on our death clock here. Last show will be episode number 100 in just 4 more weeks. So sorry to get your hopes up and then dash them so spectacularly. But fear not. If the market stuff is your bag, this show is not going away in its complete entirety. We will be trying to do office hours over the summer, so that'll still be Eve Central's, Eve centric. You guys call in while I edit stuff and ask questions, and I give you answers. I still reserve the right to do special reports if anybody actually goes to a giant war. Fight me, anime war. And if you are interested in the stuff that backs up the show, stuff like data science and Python and graphs, do keep tuned because we'll be relaunching the show, a version of the show in more that vein, hopefully by the end of the summer. All of the graphs are made in-house. They're generated in R, the same tool that CCP Quant uses. We have all of our data is collected from open sources. Links to the sources should be down the doobly-doo below, but sorry, YouTube guys, it might not be there yet. Let's see, what else? Everything's written in Python to make it go. More than happy to talk about how it's done after the show. For watching along at home, once we start the show, it's going to run about 45 minutes. I don't tend to answer questions or do audience participation during that section, but I do have chat open on both YouTube and Twitch, and I will see your questions, and we will talk about them after the show, where we'll have about a 30-45 minute Q&A where I answer your questions. And do get questions in, or I'm going to rant about Python bullshit. So there's that. Let's see. Last piece, which I'm going to say in the main intro again anyway, is come join the Discord. Links to join are down in the doobly-doo. That is the very best way to get in touch with me these days. I do try to answer all my PMs, and that is where the best place to get in touch with me is. So with that, I'm going to press some buttons, and we're going to get this show rolling. Going to press some buttons so you don't get the fan hum, because I'm a professional. Put that there. We push that button. We push that button, and that button, and then that button. Good evening and welcome to the 96th episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host Lockefox, and I am here with all of your market news for the YC 119.5 release, which I really wish they'd come back with witty names, because this, for such a big release, it sure feels silly to be naming it as a point release. So let's go ahead and get this show rolling. once again, thank you everybody who is tuned in live. We are broadcasting live to both Twitch and YouTube. If you want to catch us in glorious 1080p, you should go tune in on YouTube. We are live every Friday night, 0300. That's Thursday night U.S. time. And you can come join the chat. If you're going to miss any of it, or if you're watching live and worried you might miss something, don't worry. We do try to get the shows up and to you guys as fast as absolutely possible. And I got to thank Christopher Mellon once again for doing the amazing work on getting the show edited for our archives, so you guys can get straight to the best parts of the show. If this is, let's see, what's the next bit? Oh, right. Get subscribed is the next piece, right? I'm good at this. Do subscribe to us. All you got to remember is Eve Prosper. They'll get you Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. And last piece of news, if you want to support us directly, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon. And though this show might be sunsetting, our Patreon will run until the end of June. And every dollar that we add over May and June is going into the pot to make sure that our tools remain up and online wherever they need to be. It's going to secure our hardware, and it's going to put a budget together for if we have to go to cloud hosting. And if you want to support us, like, that would mean even $1 in the jar would go an extremely far way. If not, do get subscribed. Do tell your friends about the Greatest Market Show on Eve Talk. We should be, we're still going to be running until the start of the summer. So do get subscribed. Do get this. Do get us added, and do watch until the end because things. Also, to all of you Eve guys who might be unsubscribing because we're going to stop talking about Eve, don't you fret. If you like graphs, if you like math, if you like data science and like learning this stuff and like trying to figure out how it's maybe not as hard as the TV makes you think it is, do keep subscribed because I do expect to launch new shows at the end of the summer, and we will be working on new content for a bigger audience, come back bigger and better than ever. So do stay subscribed. With that, let's go ahead and get straight into the news, straight into the biggest piece of our day. Let's talk about Plex. Holy shit. Oh my God, the Plex split. Holy fuck. So I managed to, and I feel really great about this, managed to get our APIs updated just in the ta-da nick of time to actually serve the Plex splits. So if you're using our Prophet endpoint, if you're using our OHLC endpoint, they are serving up Plex perfectly split. And bonus tip is that if you query the old Plex ID, the 29988 or whatever it is, you will get the account cost per month. Essentially the old Plex split applied to the new Plex item. If you query for the new item, like 44662, I think is the other one, that will go and rejigger the old history into the new Plex item, and both profit forecasts will work in that regime. So if you query old Plex, you get the monthly subscription cost. If you query new Plex, you get the forecast for Plex. Now, I know some of you guys may be thinking that, well, is Prophet smart enough to know the difference? And the answer is no. It only takes in one feed at a time. And so no guarantees if the Plex forecast for the old forecast and the new forecast don't perfectly line up because they're getting calculated independently. With that, let's get straight into the news. We are looking at brand shiny new Plex trading at just over 2.5 million. This is against what I originally expected. I expected prices to crash, but I think that the what we're going to end up seeing as we zoom out. Okay, so we're looking at 1 year of original Plex. Great news. Again, thank you so very much, CCP Quant, for backfilling the history. I'm glad that we got that done. So you can look at, here is Plex, the new Plex, back through history. So even though we're at 2.5 million right now, it's still projecting, 2 million before and whatever the conversion rate you'd expect to see. So thank you very much, CCP Quant, for doing that. And addendum, could you please put the raw numbers back in the MER? They weren't in the April numbers, and they're still not in the April numbers. Next, if we zoom all the way in, we can sort of see the problem right here. Since all of the Plex orders got canceled, we ended up with a bit of a shortage at the moment. And ignore these weird straight lines. Those are the holes in my database because I couldn't switch it over in time. But we're looking pretty thin on Plex. I still expect to see the birthday money idea coming through. So I'm hoping we're back up to, let's say, 300 units. That doesn't look right. I must have divided wrong. Oh no, this is old Plex. Right. So we're looking at the actual account costs at 1.3 billion right now. The actual supplies are down in the 290 times 500. So sorry, the numbers are going to be a little bit wonky. The supplies are still pretty thin, and I'm hoping to see a surge come to market over the next week or so. Again, general activity metrics are kind of down at the moment, and we might just be running slower than we really should be. Or it's going to be just like injectors, where I said for 3 months that, oh yeah, no, it's totally going to do this. I did all this stuff, and I did all this back research, and I built this model, and then Eve was like, fuck you and your model, and it goes and does the exact opposite. So I'm still hoping for a slide. Again, 15% is the number, so that only gets us down to just under 1.2. So the weekend slide, if there's a weekend panic, probably can't drive us that low. Also, after looking at the April numbers, we still have a truckload of cash in the system, and ISK velocities are trending downwards, which are both bad news for Plex prices because they'll continue to rise. The other bad news is now that the Plex has been split, I think that we're going to end up in a boiled frog scenario where 1.3 is essentially a record price. I think 135 might have been the old record. But we can go from 2.5 million of Plex to 3 million Plex, and that doesn't really feel the same as going from 1.25 billion to 1.5 billion, even though it's the same percentage step. We'll see if that holds. I really do think there's a lot of ARM that's going to come back out of the system. But it might leak back in slower than expected. And with as much cash as getting printed in Delve, we just might be screwed. So next, skill trading. You're going to have to excuse me. A couple of my graphs are still broken. I was hacking on them. I've been really crunched at work, so it's been hard to get the time required to rework this stuff. So my skill trading market's going to be a little bit screwed up, but expect the margins to be continuing to thin. Somewhere around here, I think, is where the trend is right now. Skill trading injectors have been staying steady, just slowly rising, not really at pace with the Plex prices. I was I was really hoping for a Plex dump so that could buy up some cheap extractors and extract some skill points, and then beat the skill injector market before it crashed. And again, when the model doesn't come together, well, then I'm just fucked, and I have yet another bad prediction. So my bad, guys. I am sorry. Next, market indexes. You're going to have to excuse me. Again, we're having a Plex bug because I didn't remap the stuff correctly. I should be... Oh, no, I know why this isn't working, because the crest loader I don't think is working. So I don't think this is real yet, so don't worry about that. Expect everything to be staying flat. It is nice to see material markets trending slightly up and ship markets at least not falling anymore. But not a lot of action going on down here. And if this was fixed, I think we'd actually be reasonably up. And I mean that's generally a good market sign for the rest of the market. Looking at total destruction, I'm wondering if I have a bug here. I think this is also tied to my database update. So this might be a problem. I'll have to go look into that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is a problem. That's why it looks exactly the same. Anyway, activity is down, and I know there was a question in the chat beforehand. So Grash Urza was asking if the Vanquisher made it into our reports. The answer is no, because I don't use Z Killboard's valuations, and so therefore I can't do the price calculation on supers. But what was it ranked at? Something like like 500 billion or something ridiculous like that. So RIP Vanquisher. That was a pretty interesting kill mail to see. I was hoping. I'm always glad to see big shiny stuff explode. And now that Revenants aren't the new hotness, it's good to see a different hotness getting destroyed. Minerals. We're moving on to minerals. Looking at Tritanium is dipping down under the 4.5 mark. This kind of looks like a big sell-off ahead of 119.5 as a way to get cash to play in the Plex market. And I think this is going to be the trend you're going to see across the mineral markets this weekend. So there was a big sell-off. We saw a big glut in supply the couple of days before the release, and the prices are dipping as you'd expect. They are recovering. It looks like things are returning back to normal, so we'll see if we end up with a double dip in the weekend. But unless you can really get the 425 items still, I don't think this is a buy. I don't even think this is a stockpile point. I'd wait for probably next week to see if there was a good stockpile on ramp. Pyrite, again, similar story. We went from 5.5 to almost down to 5.2. We're down at 5.4 at the moment. Again, big supply split as somebody did a big sell-off, looking to get raw cash ahead of the Plex split. Things returning back to normal after the split, so not a lot to say here. I expect to be back close to 5.75 by Monday, hopefully. Next, Mexilon, our darling of the show, is finally diverging from our, according to the tracker at adamforeve.eu. The robot was so convinced that May 12th was going to be 100 ISK Mexilon, and I was like, okay, robot, you crazy. And yeah, what we saw again, similar story, big sell-off, big price dip. Came back to where we were before. So not a lot to say here. I'm feeling a bit sheepish that I should have said something about the sell-off into the Plex split. I just expected people to be cashing out Plex reserves and not be cashing out other positions. This was stupid. I am stupid, and I should have told you better. So again, my bad. I am bad at this. You think I'd be good at this by almost 100 episodes in? Isogen took a big nosedive again, but again, we don't like Isogen. Remember, it's at a very low spot, and if you believe in technicals, this is a great chance to buy in. The 48 buy order is extremely good, especially if you're expecting a return back to 52. This is basically almost as close to a sure thing as I can really give you on the show. I'd be careful with it because again, I say sure thing and everybody jumps on it, and then I end up in a pump and dump, Jim Cramer style. But the 48 price, the fact that this buy floor has held, it's a really good chance to jump in and jump in for 52, 53 sell off. Next, Noxium staying steady. We saw it up at 400 last week, but going back down. Again, not as much sell-off because I don't think as many people were using this as a cash reserve, but a decent buyout leading to some instability. If we get down below the 50 million units mark, you might want to buy. You might want to buy at this 375 mark, but I don't think that's a really great play. I'd be just holding on, treating Noxium like you do every day. Zydrine, keeping steady at 1,000. Again, somebody wants it off of 1,000, and it comes back to 1,000. Supplies are pretty thin. Interesting not to see the same supply glut. Like I would have expected to get to 200 million units. We would have crashed down under this 1K mark to like 975. But that didn't happen, and supplies are a little bit thin, leading to a little bit of high price, but like this is nothing. And then the one you've all been waiting for, the thing that Reddit lost its fucking mind about, Megasite took a huge nosedive, diving from almost 1,400 all the way down to 800, just now recovering to 1,200. So if we go ahead and zoom in, we can really see what was going on here. So there was a big sell-off is what the story ends up being, is that people may have been adding to the sell orders here and competing it down, driving the prices down to 1.1. But the sell orders, oh my God, just so much sell volume, just destroying the floor and then recovering and destroying the floor again. This is what's driving the market history graph in game. And it's interesting to see such weight on the buy order side of this equation. Tells me that a couple of big sellers nuked their supplies. And I'm wondering if these spiky bugs might have been bad orders put in, like, you know, oh, I gotta get a floor on this, like I gotta get in on here, and you know, fat fingered an extra 0 on something. That's particularly funny, but just a huge sell-off, a ridiculous sell-off. It's interesting to see that buy orders crashed so low, but sell orders stayed relatively steady. It looked like the people who wanted their cash really wanted it right now, and it's impressive. And we see all of this volume action and all of this average price action saying that, like, so if it says that the average price was under 800, and that means that something like 90% of the buys that day were 80 or 90% of the orders executed that day were buy orders, which is just incredible. So all of you Reddit people, I'm sorry I didn't have time to run this graph before. Again, life is busy. There's your answer. Somebody can go screen cap this and go get karma. Morphite, last mineral of the show, is down under 9K. It's just under 9.5. Not a lot to say here. Supplies are staying steady. Prices are crashing down, meaning a decent chance to buy in. But the no war, no more fight sales. So I wouldn't put too many positions in this. Again, like I said last week, I would be, if I were actively playing for the next 6 months, and I were looking to build a nest egg, and I wanted to really double down on a moon goo bet, I would be slowly adding Morphite into my portfolio. So week after week, buying, 1,000 units here, 10,000 units there, adding 100 million at a time at good buy order prices. Like, really put these opportunistic buy orders here to try and get really cheap prices. Ahead of the Tech 2 rebalance, not the Tech 2 rebalance, ahead of the moon mining rebalance and new feature. But again, that's a risk. I would hope that you wouldn't put all of your eggs in a basket. Like, this should be a couple percentage points of your profits just go into your long bet. Your long, hopefully make a ton of money, probably won't lose any money kind of bet. That's what I'm thinking of Morphyte. It's like 1% off the top goes into Morphyte. That's sort of my expectation here. Again, the play is like with Citadels in the P4 markets. The market really crashed because nobody really did the numbers to understand how many units of the stuff really needed to be used and how many units were actually available, and how, one Keepstar would have destroyed the entire market for like a week. So that's the sort of play we're looking at here, is that if Tech 2 becomes cheap because of cheap Moon Goo, I don't think Morphyte is elastic enough to rise with it. So this is my long bet. Moving on to fuel. Big crash in the fuel isotope markets. What I would think this is a piece of the patch notes that kind of slipped under my radar, is you're not going to be able to build new POS structures, at least new industry POS structures, going forward. That was turned off in 119.5. You should be, if you're going to build up new industry, you need to do it in the new ECs. So what I expect is a bunch of these Caldari towers in HiSec that were doing regular industry are going to get sunsetted, and especially if the items can't be generated anymore, they start to become collector items. Collectors are going to drive up the prices, and it's going to be a more painful kill mail when you get a war dex. So that's where I'm going to go pin this particular thing. So if you've got a moon mining setup, this is a decent chance to stock up on nitrogen isotopes. Oxygen isotopes still staying steady at 800. Again, another long bet. Helium and hydrogen continue to be in the dumps under 700, near 650, and I would hope that we end up at a parity point. Again, I was expecting 750 for a parity point, but we might end up at 800 depending on how things roll out. But as soon as that dev blog comes out, which either is going to come out in June, July, or isn't going to show up until October, right ahead of Vegas, probably the latter, if we're going to be honest. So I don't think that it's an emergency to jump on this market yet. And then looking at fuel costs, the thing that is not shown here, and we're going to talk about in a little bit, is the cost of everything but the isotopes has started to fall. And that's leading to some pretty decent margins here for fuel blocks, especially, again, in the helium and the hydrogen blocks. That the prices of the blocks are staying relatively steady talks to how Citadel owners are still using the rainbow block mentality of pick the cheapest block, but the builders who are building the less popular blocks are really getting to charge a premium for their work. Next, strontium clathrates. Looking for SOV warfare. We are not seeing any. We're staying steady at almost 30 million units on the market. Price is staying steady at 6.5. Not a lot of action here to talk about. Supplies continue to grow, but slowly in the heavy water situation. Again, sort of pointing to more miners coming back, and a few percentage points worth of miners. We're not talking about pre-nerf, but I think that enough people are converting back over to make that a passive income stream, essentially, which would be great. I'd like to see more miners because it burns some of the cash that's coming out of the system. Next, moving on to outliers. Excuse me one second. Again, last week I said there could be some interesting work in the middle, and nanotransistors took off like a rocket. Fullerenes, hypersynaptic fibers, and phenolic composites. Well, phenolic composites took a leap, but everyone else stayed steady. Here at the top, we're seeing ferrogel leading, and some of the metamaterials are showing some chances for speculation, but I caution. Sorry, let me actually get close enough to the mic to be heard. I caution jumping in on some of these. They're in a little bit unstable. Terahertz might pop, but plasmonic looks like it's going to take a dive. Looking back out across PI4s, not a lot to talk about. Prices are slumping slightly. This is to be expected. Nothing, no big news. Means that things are going to stay relatively steady. And then, like I said, mechanical parts. Sorry about this. Mechanical parts taking a big nosedive a couple weeks ago, recovering back to 140K, diving again back to 120K, 12K. No, wait, I can read. Anyway, diving back down again. Prices seem to be on the way down. It's a decent chance to buy in, hoping for if you believe in the technicals, to come back up to 1400. But it's a little bit hard to predict in the spot that it's in. Next, drone transceiver units have been on a tear, rising from 800K to adding almost $1 million to their price, now at 1.6 mil. And they look to be steady, leveling off at the 165 level. Not a lot to say here. It's interesting to see. This kind of looks like a rebalance ahead of the release, but like I think release goes right here. Somebody might have been buying out the market slowly but surely, but I don't know many people in Eve that have that kind of patience, except for maybe Probag Bear. Next, Macarials are in a precarious position going into the weekend. Volumes are really thin, and we've seen some recent whelps. And so expect prices to rise, hopefully to 350 mil, maybe a little bit higher. I don't know if we'll get all the way to 375. We have to stay under this 100 mark for most of the weekend to get there. And I just don't know what the supply chain is really looking like these days. Ishtar is another boondoggle this week. Volumes are rising, prices are falling. Looks like a decent chance to buy in sub 180 million, maybe 175. I don't know, like I'd be hoping to get like a 170, 175 to sell for 192. Is kind of the play I expect here, is that you try to catch the bottom of this buy order slump and then sell to sell orders. I'd be careful about how much volume you put in here, because this tends to get saturated and stay saturated for maybe 2 weeks. So be careful or patient or both. Next, we had the Worm, the Garmer, and the Bargast all flagged this week. I'm wondering if it's because of the Alliance tournament being announced. That seems strange to me. The actual buy-ins for these things seem to be low and slow. I expect most people to be buying their actual supplies for this stuff either months in advance or days in advance, not any time in between. And if you're doing months in advance, I don't know why you would buy out huge swaths of this stuff. So worms are down. Garmers were up, but back down again after I think the announcement was yesterday or 2 days ago. I have to double check. And then Bargast are way up, which is interesting to see. So if you are at all interested in these high-end pirate ships, it'd be a decent chance to jump in and play some of the volatility as an entry point. I know they're a bit on the expensive side for the intro speculator, but the volatility is at least interesting enough to to play the technicals, as it were. Next, shout out to Rick's Javix and whatever the hell he was doing, buying out all the Warp Core stabs, or selling all the Warp Core stabs. I know he was complaining about it on Twitter this morning, and it triggered my flag for deviation. So, hey Rick's, we will remove the Warp Core stabs as the world menace that they are. Next, the other interesting flag this week was Black Ops. I hope this is Black. Wait, no. Panther should be Black Ops. Yeah, Panther should be Black Ops. Panther and the Redeemer both flagged our price thing. And again, the patterns aren't exactly the same. I don't remember seeing anything in the patch notes about them. But interesting to see them get more action in the last week. I'm wondering if anybody is starting up Covert Ops, Bomber's Bar style thing, and this has just become more popular. I don't think I saw much in the other markets for this, so give me a sec. No, come on. Jesus, you're just going to be the worst, aren't you? I went through all the trouble to generate it, and I didn't click on it. No, Bombers didn't spike. Okay, sorry. Back to the show. So I didn't see anything in Bombers to really tickle me, but it's at least interesting. Next, going over our predictions from previous shows. We're going to start with the Rattlesnake, where I said that prices were in the dumpster, and they continue to be in the dumpster. It's a decent chance to buy in, especially on the buy orders at $335. I don't know if we're going to go any lower than the $350 sell order at the moment. We might go a little bit below, but I don't think we'll get down to $345. So it's a decent chance to stock up ahead of any operations. Next, the large auxiliary nano pumps. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, where it's up and it's down and it's up again. I had said that patterns of 2 tend to happen, and then you think there's going to be a pattern of 3. So we're seeing the 2 pattern here. So this is me eating my words about just how wrong technical analysis is, but if you jumped on that, you could have made a decent profit. That's really easy to say in retrospect. I don't know if I would have jumped on it at the price it was at. I thought it was going to stay steady at, what's that, 1.4 or 14 mil? I can't really read the decimal points. Next, the Falcon was another interesting one. I hope I told you guys to sell, because the price should have been dropping. And again, we see suppliers come to the market and really saturate it, driving the price under the old norm. So it's a decent chance to buy in going into this weekend. But, I mean, how much? Only 30 Falcons sell a day, so I don't know if this is really that great a speculative market. And then Covert Ops cloaking device was another one of those, praying for a twofer. It didn't come, so where it came on nano pumps, it did not come on Covert Ops devices. It's still not a terrible buy, especially looking at some of the moon trends, but you might not be getting the returns you're really hoping for here. And last, but certainly not least, let's talk about violence. Across the board, things are looking relatively standard. If we had the Vanquisher on here, it would have blown this particular scale completely out. So I'm sorry, guys. I really am sorry. I should have done things better. Maybe once everything's in Mongo, we can recalculate and do things right. Interesting to see Thanatos, I think, are gaining in popularity, it looks like. And Vexor Navy issues are really hot right now. Not a lot of Macarial losses in the last couple of weeks. There was a big loss a week and a half ago, but nothing in the books so far. Again, you anime weebs need to fucking shoot each other instead of talking about it. Active systems, we're seeing 7RM and GE Tech 8 is coming onto the system now. Hula is new to the system. We haven't seen Hula in a while. And Jita and Tama turning things around. And then last, the expected mix of Black Rise, Providence, Catch, Citadel, and Forge. Not a lot to say for Total Destruction. Catch is a little bit interesting, but like the total kill counts are kind of measly, given the last few months of given where we should be, as opposed to where we are. And holy cow, that hurts. So with that, let's go ahead and bring this show to a close. I want to thank everyone who tuned in live on Twitch and YouTube. If you want to catch us live, you can do so at 0300 on Friday nights. That's Thursday night U.S. time. I've been your host, Lockefox. This has been the Eve Prosper Show. You can get subscribed if all you remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. And if you want to support the show, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon. Patrons right now are basically stocking up the funds for keeping our services online as long as we possibly can. We're making plans to keep our endpoints running and keep our data generating for as long as we possibly can. And if you want to keep that running, throwing a buck in that jar would go an extremely long way. If you can't support us monetarily, don't want to support us monetarily, completely understand, not a problem. Do get subscribed, though. This show might be coming to an end, but if you enjoy graph porn and if you enjoy the developer side of this stuff, if you want to learn more about the real market and real data trends, do keep tuned in because we should be coming back for that. Thank you again, everybody who tuned in live. I've been your host, Lockefox. This has been the Eve Prosper Market Show. We will see you again next week. And Caleb, you're gross. All right. I don't have to respect anyone's waifus. So let's see. We had... Oh, that's disgusting. Oops, that's not a button I wanted to press. Okay. Shiver Warp, we did not see the expected outcome. Plex has risen and supplies have diminished. Thanks to all the orders being reset. They haven't been relisted yet. So that's a sad. What did I order? Oh, another pin. That's what. Words. So this part of the show is the part where you ask me questions about stuff. And yeah, I'm not happy with where Plex is. Everyone, there's like, if I were Recurve, I would be rather panicky about just how much cash is being printed right now and how there's nowhere for that money to go and that we didn't get the war we were expecting to burn off that money. So I'd also be worried that when it comes to development schedules, we're getting we're cutting into the last sprint before vacation time. So if we don't get things fixed if we don't get things in the pipeline for mid to late June release, they're going to continue to be broken until probably September. So, and Caleb, I know that you want to see sub-billion plex. I want to see sub-billion plex. But at 1.3, I mean, as far as I can tell, like I can't really predict in good conscience a dump lower than 15%, and we're at 1.3, and like that means that we're only going to go down to like 125, and like there's just nothing to be said about that. Like we might get back down to 2 million isk plex, miniplex, but it's. Ooh. I'm hoping this weekend we get the Weekend Warriors with their birthday money selling off. We see the orders come back that have been canceled, and we see the supply chain start to ramp back up again, so we get back over 1,000 equivalency units on the thing. But where we're sitting right now is just kind of sucky. Yeah, and I am not looking forward to this summer slump. Like, even if I weren't quitting the show, like September, like if you ever want to write a blog about how Eve is dying and this is the real death knells, you do it in September, and you'll really make CCP nervous, because they're thinking the same thing. The numbers end up going that we see the turnaround at the end of June every year, and so everybody writes fluff pieces about, oh, Eve is dying, slopes for the slope throne. But you go look at June, July, and August's monthly economic numbers, and things start looking really scary. And when things don't quite recover in October the way you were expecting, like I'm really disappointed in CCP that they don't have a big summer point release, and unless they're really ready to come in like at the end of Q3 with some sort of big event or some big primer to get people excited, it's we're going to be in a shitty spot for the peak Eve time in November and October. It's going to be a real bummer of an Eve Vegas if things don't turn around. Like this isn't why I'm quitting. Like the personal bit about me not playing Eve has nothing to do with Eve is dying. It has everything to do with I have a really, really tough job. And my goals don't line up with Eve anymore. But the numbers are gonna be ugly this year. I get that our general, like, what I'm worried is I continue to be worried about how much ISK is getting printed in Delve, and the slowdown in ISK velocity without a war. And either one of these things by itself isn't a problem, but together provide a really dangerous concoction for the economics of Eve. We're gonna be at like 2 billion isk plex by the end of the summer if we keep printing cash the way we are. And with that sort of imbalance, you end up being that, goons can afford it, and wormholers can afford it, and then high seckers get really crunched, and alphas get really crunched. And it's not so much that they need to get good, and there's a modicum of that, but like my worry again was like when we were talking about mineral prices before the Rourke nerf. The mineral prices by themselves aren't a problem, right? I actually like them at their half rate with just how ridiculous the supply chain was, and just how much of this material was coming out. I thought was actually mostly good. And the nerfs that ended up coming through, I mostly agreed with. And I'd still like to see like 10% more Rourke mining than we're seeing right now. And the problem with that was that you bring in your alphas, and what's the first thing everyone does? Mineral, we go mine minerals. Oh, well, shit. If I have to mine low ends in high sec, and I need to get to 1.5 billion ISK a month in fees to get there, well, fuck me, man. Like, I'd have to mine every day on 2 characters. Like, it'd have to be my fucking job. Fuck this game. And like, I'm okay with saying, nerf high sec mining into oblivion so that it makes no money. But like, the problem is the problem is that it is bad news for the most vulnerable, the people who are getting their first taste into Eve, and a 2 billion ISK a month bar for them to play for free is a really big pill for them to swallow. Like, 1 billion, fine, 1 billion's easy. And if we didn't have to talk about alphas, I'd be okay with a 2 billion ISK 2 billion ISK payout. But because it devalues PvP, and like the bars for PvP continue to stay flat. Like they're if you use that as your inflation measure, like what does it cost to be in an F1 fleet in nullsec, that price point has stayed basically stable forever. And yeah, I think that things are getting too generous in nullsec. The opportunities just aren't quite there for high sec. We're going to end up in a regime where it becomes too hard weighted to nullsec. Like, again, it's that this is the hard part of my job, is trying to say, like, where it could be, every piece of space has its place. And right now, like, you either need to amp returns on like level 4 missions and exploration content in high sec to help bring some of that balance back out of Delve, or you need to nerf the living shit out of anomalies and really mess with the true sec system so that we're spawning maybe 20% less rats across the board. Or your anomalies take 50% more time to respawn. So that it's not just free reign, print all the fucking money. So it's more that right now I think Delve has it too easy, and they're making more money than is fair, and it's going to lead to instability, and that instability is going to hurt a lot more of the game. I was hoping for a war. Again, if we had had a war, I think we would have crunched enough money through the system to make a difference. But right now, like, it's null online. Like, it's the only fucking thing to do. It's the Council of Null Management, and it's ISK printing a clock, and nobody's doing anything with the money. That's the part that pisses me off the most, is like, you hoard and you hoard and you hoard all of this fake money, and what the fuck do you do with it? Do you sell it off for real life money in RMT? Do you just try to get to 1 trillion ISK so that you get a big round number? Do you go buy a bigger ship so you can make more money that you're not going to spend? Like, you should go with if Plex hits 2 billion, right? Let's say Plex hits 2 billion. That essentially halves the value of ISK as it was 6 or 9 months ago, right? It means that the fleet that cost 300 mil a unit 6 months ago now costs 150 million a unit in true value, right? So if that's the case, if that's truly the case, if you normalize for Plex cost against the actual fleet cost, and we're still talking about a 300 to 400 million ISK per unit F1 fleet, then why the fuck are you just sitting on your money? At that point, you should be printing so much money that you shouldn't give a shit when you whelp 1,000 Macarials, because it's worth half what it was. And you should just go out and do it. Like, we're getting to the point where ISK is so fucking cheap that as to be meaningless. As Plex rises, that devalues ISK. We talk about, like, if it's $15 a billion before, now it's $15 gets you 2 billion, right? It's $750 a billion. That's 2 fucking Starbuckses. Gets you a billion ISK, gets you a capital ship. And it's it means there should be no reason you are not out there with your big ass frickin' ship, wagging it around with your big fucking dick and killing each other. The thing that kills me is that I'd be okay with any one of these stats, but the fact that nobody's going to war and nobody's actually PvPing, that we're seeing just piddly little skirmishes while everybody just farms ISK like giant machines, kills me, because what's the point in devaluing the currency that much if you're not going to do anything with it? Like, Jesus. For fuck's sake, go out there and do something, because at 2 billion ISK a Plex, 2 billion ISK a month in Plex cost, like, it should be fucking obvious. You should be sitting there with so much money in your fucking hoard and going, oh, who gives a shit if I'll buy this round of Macarials for the fleet, like we're drinking beers. Like, yeah, no, round for the house. Let's go and whelp a fleet. Who gives a shit? Like, that's the response we should be seeing, not the fact that we're risk averse and devaluing the currency. Like, fucking kills me. Like, that's the thing that's been really on my nerves, especially with all of that weeabooing about the fucking anime war. I was like, yes, we need a war, even if it's not as big as the frickin' casino war. I need excuse me. Let me make sure it's properly branded. World War B. Even if it's not as big as World War B, to get a couple trillion ISK out of the system would do some good. It'd get the gears turning. It moves some more volatility in the market. It makes some decent content for this. We'd get to talk about more kills, and we'd start making news. But instead we do a fucking forum war about shitty photoshops, and we don't actually shoot each other. And it really is disappointing. Super duper disappointing. And we're heading straight towards the Serenity server at this rate, where we've got 3 big powers, and they've cut up the cake to their heart's content, and never actually go anywhere. They all just make money, and they protect their slice of the pie, and nothing ever fucking changes. And that's the thing that kills it for me. That's the piece that absolutely destroys my my hope going forward. Like, and then and if there's no volatility, if none of these people are really fighting each other, if nothing is actually moving in the system, then why do you need a show like mine? Like, why would I spend 30 hours a month or 40 hours a month on custom code for a system that is going to stay static? Like, who the fuck gives a shit? Like, you don't need me if we go into a regime of of no volatility. The reason you need a show like this is because you need tools that can filter out all of the noise and bubble the stuff to the top. But like the flags list that I keep going through every week gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and we expect that. Totally expect that going into this season, especially without a major point release coming up. But like the only market to talk about is Plex. There's no big war to talk about. Nobody's changing things, and it's like if you're gonna hoard the cash, why don't you fucking do something? Like if you're gonna devalue the currency so that we start talking about $7 a billion, then it should be, you should be able to, if a capital ship now costs you $7, like you do a complete conversion to dollars, and you went from a capital ship that cost you 15 or $20 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and now it's $7. So let's say you skip a night you skip a beer at the bar, one weekend, right? Like, like I can't even buy that much pot for $7, right? Like, what if I took my a chunk of my weekend bullshit money and bought a capital and just dicked around with it, and we got 3 of my buddies together and we hot dropped something stupid, and even if we lost our whole ships, who gives a shit? Because we lost $7 a piece. Like, I would have spent more on that on pull tabs lottery tickets at the fucking bar. Like, seriously, you at least get something out of it. And okay, the giant dudes, like, whatever, fuck them. They're gonna just sit on their money and probably RMT a big chunk of it. But like, if ISK becomes that cheap, what is your excuse for not PvPing? What is your excuse for being afraid of Z Killboard when the Plex divisor ends up being so high as to make even like a 10 billion ISK loss look trivial? So that's my thing. If it's fine for any one metric to be where it is, I can justify any one metric, but to keep the system in as it is, we're in a shitty spot, and I don't like it. Like, you don't have to spend all of your beer money on capitals. I'm not saying that, but I mean, like, fuck, you'd spend $20 on pull tabs in a bar, right? Like, you'd have more fun fleeting, whelping capitals, in my opinion. Like, why the hell not? Get your buddy a fax, get you a dread, go sit on the Tama gate and look for trouble. Like, fuck. Easy peasy. Go make a battle Rorqual. Like, if ISK is going to be that cheap, then just use that to your advantage. But it does come back to the problem of where ISK is cheap for the people who aren't doing anything with it. It becomes expensive for the people who do want to do stuff with it, and you end up with an imbalance of haves and have-nots. And not to get all fucking liberal about it, it just stymies the waters, because the hot part that's making all the money and the cold part that would be happy to use the money are getting separated, essentially. So I don't. It's and I hate to like tell the high seckers and the faction warfare guys and all the other non-null dudes that they have to basically pay to play. But that's really the only wealth redistribution vector we have without a major rebalance. That's That's really the only vector that brings the cash out of HiSec, out of nullsec, and into the hands of people who will use it. Is the only vector is Plex, and I don't love that because it really does mean a pay to play kind of regime, and it means that the people making the money and the people using the money are not right, and you know, get go topple your Marxist your Marx and your Lenin statues, but like it's like if you have access to the money, you should be spending it, because we're going to go into a deflationary spiral, not an inflationary one. Well, okay, I lied. It's going to be technically inflation, I guess, but like only on the ISK value. It's not going to change the value of minerals very much. It's not going to change the value of the ships, because those are all tied to the actual material fountains. But the ISK will be devalued. So use it or lose it, man. Let's see. Any more questions? And yes, you should get a carrier and drop on puppies. It'll be fun. All right. I think I've ranted about that long enough, but we still got probably 15 minutes. So if you guys don't have questions, I do love cockbag thrashers. They're one of my favorites. Let's see. Words. So I'm going to go ahead and rant about programming stuff if nobody has any more questions. So we're getting a new person, a new dude in my department from support, who is insanely eager. So I love that. But doesn't really know a ton of code, knows enough to hack, but is just dangerous enough. And I was sitting there because, man, all of the things in my life right now outside of Eve are pointing towards become a Python trainer. Like everything is do it, stupid. Like do like Michael Kennedy and make a, you know, all Python all the time thing. So they're going to start on Monday. They're like, well, I don't know much of it, but I'm willing to learn and do all this stuff. And so I'm like, okay, you're going to hate me, but here's a copy of CC2E, Code Complete, which if you already know how to code, but you're looking to get better, like if you're feeling kind of like intermediate, or you're trying to get over that hump from intermediate to expert, or from beginner to intermediate, like if that's where you feel you are, if you're frustrated by, like, if your biggest enemy is yourself for code, CC2E is my number one prescription for that. It's like $25 on Amazon. You can probably get it for 20 if you do a little bit of shopping. It's something like 2,000 pages of stuff, but it is my definitive guide for how to not write, like, give up writing like an asshole, and embrace the new, embrace a better style, so that and so I've been extraordinary. So number one rule from CC2E TLDR is that you should write for humans first and for computers second. All of those assholes who tell you about, like, how you need to do all of this optimization and do, like, oh, like, for loops, for instance, branch prediction does something like in batches of 8 or something. So you should break up your for loop in batches of 8 to really maximize the thing. Roll out the for loop and try to be smarter than the processor. And the problem is that people much smarter than you have already done that, and it's already automatically done. So the compiler at some level fucking does it for you. So and so you, like, this was my pain at the last job. I'm going to lose these because I'm not actually listening to anything. Was that these guys would write all of this code, and they'd write it like fucking assholes, where, like, the variables were extremely short because we were totally going to save space, even though the linker allocates pointers arbitrarily. Like, it doesn't matter what you fucking named it. It could be 64 characters long. It's going to get changed into, like, an 8-bit key anyway. Like, it's going to get denormalized. What the fuck are you doing? Why did you only write, like, BF as your goddamn thing? And like, oh, why are you doing all of these premature optimizations so you can save a millisecond a day? Like, fuck you, man. And so, like, this was extraordinarily frustrating to me, because this made me hate my fucking job. I'd get in and be like, I will never be a level 4 or level 5 engineer, because, like, my career is going to top out at 3. At 5 years of tenure, I'm going to hit level 3, and my life's going to be fucking done at this company, because I can't write like these assholes. I hate doing it. And if that became my job, like, if you said, okay, go spend the next 2 weeks, recompiling this important thing to save the company $1 million, I'd really rather floss myself to death with razor wire. So we ended up starting a little group centered around Code Complete. And we got through each of the chapters is not that big. So it's an extraordinary resource for getting through this stuff. So you can be like, so you go through, like, how do you do for loops? For loops are, these are the things you should do about for loops. And, if thens and switches, like, these are what you should be thinking about, or control code, these kind of things. There's all sorts of just really simple well-does when you read them, and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Why wasn't I doing it that way? And it really, really builds up a foundation of good practices. Like, it's a style guide for code, essentially. Is it much like you would take like an English style guide for a writing course? Code Complete is a code style guide that tells you your syntax and your big block shapes, essentially. And, like, that changed my whole fucking life. And it really brought the joy back into code, because, like, I stopped having to get stuck in the ditches of, like, where I was tripping myself up, where I wrote something and then 3 months later I'd come back to it and be like, who the fuck wrote this? Oh yeah, it was me. What the fuck was I thinking? I must have been high as a fucking kite. And so, and also getting down into the depths of Python helps, because the other piece of advice that I've learned now that I'm going from intermediate to master, or whatever the level 3 to level 4 style feeling, is that The other thing I've been learning has been you should write code the way that the language really supports. So Java code should look like Java code, C code should look like C code, Python code should look like Python code. When you start writing like Perl code that looks like C, you end up making your life difficult. If you try to mix styles, you give up the worst parts. You give up the best parts of a language in exchange for things that barely work. Like one thing I've been fighting with my current coworkers is a tendency to write C++ style or C# style Python. And I mean, this isn't terrible, right? C# and Python are reasonably close in the map, right? But like Python does a lot of things. There's a lot of style ticks in Python that make your life easier. So you can use things like magic methods are extraordinarily powerful, and having those in your bag lets you do some really cool things. Like if you want to see magic methods, go check out the 1.20 release that's of the Prosper API. I ended up using the math magic methods to power the split calculator so that the object understands if we're splitting forwards or splitting backwards. And then all you do is you say, well, the price times the object or the volume divided by the object, and it does the math correctly. So it handles the left-right split inside an object. And then that means that you write all the code the same further down the line. And that's a really simple example. Another one I've really used a lot of is Python's dict magic method. Lets you get access to the entire class because deep down inside, almost everything in Python is a dict. And that's not quite right. Please don't quote me on that. But like, if you're trying to explore a piece of code and it's just not fucking working, and you're not getting the answer from Kite, you're not getting the answer from Google, you're not getting the answer from PyCharm, you print out the object dunder dict, and you can get all of the children inside there. You can get a look. You can expose the entire class and blow it up essentially to get a look on the inside. And like I was doing that with Flask today because I was really frustrated that the debugger doesn't fucking attach for some goddamn reason. And another interesting tool I've been playing with is Kite. I don't think it really works on Windows yet. So I need to go send an email to them, but yeah, it's only for Python right now. But I've been really liking that as a code helper. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it. So, but at $8 a month, I'm getting my money's worth. I'm basically coding twice as fast. But like I was going through, I have two big problems with my dudes at work. Number one is that a couple of them have some really bad habits. And the NanoQ, you can parse some Z Killboard stuff to get down in there. Look up. Let me get you a link to something that might spur your brain. You might want to steal that. So like one of the problems is they have some bad design habits, so it becomes really hard to read. Which again, you should be optimizing for people before computers because people are more expensive than computers. And if you end up spending 10% more time on inefficient code, like it takes a lot of inefficient computer time to actually add up to being worth human time, basically. Like if I may be so blunt. so that was one of them. The other one was like I've been trying to work on more templates so that because I've been having a real problem that I keep doing all this Python work and all this great Python design stuff and trying to like make systems that are good and like, oh, look, you can do this and you can do this. And it all just sort of works. And like half of my team is like, yeah, okay, I got it. Got you, fam. And everybody gets up to the same page. And then the other half of the team is like, what? I'm sorry. Did you say something? And like, I get it. We have a lot to do, and I'm a weirdo. I'm not begrudging them for not hanging on my every word, but like, I've been trying to make it so that I can get robots to do as much of the work as possible, because robots will do the same thing the same way every time. And like, if I can get the robots to do continuous integration and continuous deployment, well, then I don't have to write a 2,000 word wiki about how to get a package uploaded into the internal PyPI. I don't have to write 400 pull request things because the CI bot will reject your code. I don't have to do all of this linting because a get hook will stop you from committing. Like, these are the things I'm trying to get done so that I can have a computer take over this pain in my life. And so I've been really on a big templating push, and I'm hoping I can show you guys some of the fruits of that in about 6 weeks. So my dev schedule is get Mongo launched, and get a template up for new scrapers that write to Mongo. That's step 1. Once that's done, I'm hoping that between the half dozen people I've managed to get hooks into, that we can start heading towards. I'm not ready to do classes yet, because to do effective classes, I really need to give you guys content to mess with. Like, the best classes I get, the classes that I get the most value out of are the ones where you can push the buttons and turn the knobs and be like, oh, no, I get it. Like, you do that and it does a thing, and you can watch it. You can mess with it in sort of a controlled environment. You can see it live. Like, that I have to have that if I'm in a class. Otherwise, it's just in one ear out the other. Instead, I'd like to be able to start doing kind of idiot's guide editorial to code is sort of the hope I'm going towards. I'd like to bring up a 30-minute podcast twice a month, where we pick a topic. So think programming throwdown, essentially, where there might be the first 15 minutes might be like, first 5 minutes or something, you're like, oh, here's the media recommendation for the show, and another 10 or 15 are going over some blog, and then the last bit is application, why you should do it, and why, like, the pros and cons of the thing. So kind of crib off of programming throwdown, cut a lot of their front end and keep the back end, essentially, and make it so that I can add some stepping stones from newbie programmer who can hello world all the way up to competent enough to be contributing to open source, which isn't as high a bar as you guys think it is. It's more of a confidence problem. So I'd like to be able to sort of get through those things and be like, okay, well, this is why you should use logging, and this is let's talk about databases for a couple of weeks, and let's talk about let's talk about get, and let's talk about packaging, and let's talk about environments, let's talk about testing, let's talk about integration, let's talk about web stuff, let's talk about each of these pieces in sort of an editorial format, a really gross top level, like, here's where to get more information if you're interested, like, let me help you get the Google words, because then at least you could see, you sort of you sort of get your brain actively thinking on it. Like the thing that has made my life so much better in the last 3 to 5 months has been having Talk Python to me in my podcast queue, because every week they're in there with, here's this really great library, and here's the person who made it, and here's why you should use it, and this is the problem it solves. And okay, maybe this library you're not going to use. Like there's one that's still in my queue that's about Internet of Things, and I don't give a shit about Internet of Things, but like what was it, Curio was talking about doing sane async work, which I'm like, oh yes, I don't get async, but I want to use it. I am there. And if like one of the big tools in my belt lately has been TinyDB, and I got that straight from those guys, and it's a way to at least sort of prime the brain pump of like, oh yeah, no, I heard about that, and well, let me Google this and let me read this blog. And Locke said something about what was it? I was listening to that show like 3 months ago. Like that's the sort of spot I want to get into. Is I don't really want to be like, this is a pointer and this is an integer and let's make the little stick figure dance, because like that's a lot of work. I should get there. I hope to get there, but I don't want to start there because it's a fuckload of work. And I want to build up an audience before we make that plunge, because I need collaborators. To be completely honest, if I'm going to get there, I need to be able to start a company and have like 5 people on an inner circle kind of thing that are willing to like get a guy who, I already got the sysadmin guy, but I need someone else who might help do more editing, which, I mean, we've got Christopher Mellon, but he's got his own stuff too going on, and maybe help with more blog posts and sort of build up a little crew for that, because I don't want to do it all by myself. But with that, that's going to end the show. Thank you for listening to my rants and ravings. I hope you guys got your questions answered. If you didn't, do join the doobly-doo down below. There should be links to get to our Discord. That's the very best place these days to get in touch with me. I try to answer all the PMs. If you guys do have questions, feel free to bug me. I do try to answer every bit of mail that comes in, but some methods are better than others. Like I always see tweets, I always see Discord. I don't always see emails, and I definitely don't see Facebook. Like there are tiers. So do get tuned in. Do get subscribed. Do hang around. We will be talking more about Python-y stuff. Hopefully at the end of the summer is kind of what I'm hoping. What I'm trying to get to is get some pilot shows in the wings, and see if we can get a blog relaunched. Like there's a whole bunch of fucking work like you don't even know, and it's really daunting as a one dude to try and get through it all. So fly safe, everyone. Go blow shit up. Be part of the economy. I will see you all next week.